Live pictures from Capitol Hill. We have been watching the grandstanding, the arm twisting, the deal making, whispers on the floor, and the vote hunting, all centered around Kevin McCarthy's quest to be named House Speaker.
This is Plausibly Live, the official podcast of the Dave Bowman Show.
Well, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are, whatever you do. A lot of things happening in the world today, most of them far beyond our control, you might say. So perhaps it's time we took a pause and thought about life, football, politics, prayer, plans. Don't touch that dial. Try to hear me out for a little while. So, how many of you watched Monday Night Football? Boy, was that a thing. Bill and I were talking about this just ever so briefly yesterday on Dave Does History. Moment that was. And those kind of things don't happen very often. The last time an NFL player died on the field was in 1960, I believe. Detroit Lions, it might have been 1970. The player made the catch over the middle, went to the ground, and he was gone. Those sorts of things don't happen a lot, but when they do happen, they're pretty significant. And what they do demonstrate is that there are two kinds of people in the world, and I'm not trying to be rude, and I'm not trying to be condescending here, although it'll certainly sound like I am. There are people who have played football competitively at an adult level. I'm not talking about peewees, I'm talking about at an adult. So say senior high school on up through the professional levels. There are a lot of levels of football. There are people who have played adult competitive football, and there are people who haven't. And you could see the dividing line on social media as this event unfolded. The people who have played the game were pretty adamant that this game needed to be canceled, and it needed to be canceled now. It needed to be suspended, we're not playing football tonight. And the people who haven't played football were very much not understanding why the game wasn't going to be played. I mean, he didn't die, so after all, should he be? Why should we stop the game? You know, football is it's a great game. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed coaching it a lot more, but I really enjoyed playing. But it's a game that left me with a lot of problems. Just sitting here counting. 1, 2, 3. I have at least 5 broken bones in my body directly as a result of football. And 4 of those playing football for the United States Navy. Not at the academy, I know, but still adult competitive football. People don't realize how dangerous of a game it is, even in the less competitive levels. I mean, people do strange things, and you never know what's going to happen. 5 broken bones. I can't even count the bruises that I went through in my life. I had a bruise on my knee one time that was, God, it was softball sized, and it took months for that bruise to heal. Not to mention a couple of concussions. Although on the positive side, I had to learn to use a keyboard to type because one year I broke both my thumbs. Same year. So anyway, those of us that have played the game understood that game needed to be suspended, needed to be put aside. I can't really explain the reason to you. I could try, but if you don't already know, you're never going to understand it. So I'm just going to leave it at that and say to you that if you've played the game, you understand it. If you didn't play the game, you probably don't. But in either case, I could beat that dead horse for hours, and it wouldn't change anything. The bigger reaction to the story, of course, is the media response, the ESPN crew, how they handled it Monday night. I thought, this is my opinion, that the criticism of the ESPN crew was misplaced. I really did. Consider what had happened. Here's something that has literally never happened on a football field, professional football field before, ever. neither of these two guys calling the game had ever seen this on a football field before. Yes, people have died playing football, but not at the pro level since 1970. But what do you do when you're sitting there with the microphone and very clearly they could see what was happening, but the shots that they were broadcasting were not showing what was happening? They could have gone into morbid detail about, oh my God, they've broken out the AED device, they're doing CPR, but that wouldn't have been appropriate either. And so they did the best they could. And for not having any information, I mean, is he on? Is he still here? Or is he waving? Is he alert? We don't know. And so all we know is that these people who have been involved with this game at a very high level are traumatized by what's going on. The shot of Josh Allen with his hands and his face in his hands was just, that was heartbreaking. I mean, it just was. And that was actually the first inkling I had that this was even more, that it wasn't a broken back or a broken neck or something like that. So, you know, I mean, they took a lot of criticism for it. Skip Bayless took some criticism for his tweet, but again, Skip Bayless never played the game. Why am I surprised that he put out a tweet saying the game should continue? He was told by Fox, his employer, to quote unquote clarify his tweet, which he did. But remember that clarifications are not to make things more clear. They are to put oneself in the clear. Who knows? I don't watch Skip Bayless anyway, as much as I like Shannon Sharp. Skip Bayless has never been someone that I would listen to when it comes to sports. I wouldn't listen to him. There's several others, but as a general rule of thumb, the media reaction, the criticism of this was really harsh. I got to be honest, it's something that in a way I've experienced. I was on the air December 15th, 2012, when the Sandy Hook story really started to break. Now, we knew that it had happened that morning, but we didn't know the magnitude of it. And in fact, even as I went on the air at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we still didn't know the magnitude of it. There was still no information. There's been a shooting at a school in Sandy Hook, and we're waiting for press conferences. And so even as it became very obvious that this was a huge event, we had no information. So what are we supposed to do? Sit here and speculate for 3 hours? Or are we supposed to, what do we do? And I don't say this lightly to you. I think that was my worst day in radio. It really was. There were a lot of bad shows along the way. There were a lot of bad moments on the way, but for a 3-hour package, that was terrible because I knew we couldn't keep doing what we had planned to do. But at the same time, what can you do? And the answer was we just didn't know. After that day, we had a big debriefing and we had a discussion about it at my insistence. I'm the one that demanded it because what I said to my PD at the time was, we're not going to have this happen again. We are not going to be put in the situation of not knowing what to do, to sit here and twiddle our thumbs on the air and go, we don't know nothing. Here's a commercial break. And I think we put a good enough plan in place that the next time something happened, which was the Bob Paris incident in Modesto, we handled it, I thought, much better. We got a lot of attaboys after that for our handling of that. I'm not saying that in a happy way because that was a very terrible situation, but at least we knew what we were doing from a broadcast standpoint. We all learn and grow in these things, and we all have those moments where, things are what they are. We did the best we could. And in the end of the day, well, that I think is what I think the folks at ESPN did. And I'm not going to criticize them for their coverage because it was an impossible situation. And they made it through. And they made it through with dignity, and they made it through properly. So Well done, ESPN crew. Well done to those who broadcast that. The weird thing about this story from Congress is that by the time you hear this, it may not be a story anymore. I mean, that's just the bottom line. But we've seen something quite remarkable on Tuesday of this week, as Kevin McCarthy, who is the Speaker presumptive, the party leader for the GOP in the House and assumed to be the Speaker, did not in fact win the Speaker's seat. There have been times when we thought there might be some shenanigans. Remember John Boehner and, watching that live, who's going to turn against him? Who's going to say no? And as it turned out, nobody did. But in this particular case, not only did people turn against him, the 4 votes that he needed, but man, at least one of them, Lauren Boebert, was quite vocal about it and said some things that were very Sailor-esque. I mean, it's not language that offends my ears, but it's not something I like to say when I'm on the air. At the same time, it leaves us with a situation where we have to ask a simple question right now. Who's going to cave? Who's going to give in? Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the votes. Now, in theory, if you had enough people throw their support behind Pelosi, she could end up Speaker again, in theory. Or they could bring in somebody from the outside and say, hey, you be Speaker. That way, we can handle it this way. They could do that. I don't see that happening because even that outside person isn't going to get the votes. I mean, who's going to vote for somebody that's a compromise candidate from the outside? It's not going to happen. I mean, it would be funny if it did. And as a Chaosian, I think it'd be kind of funny to see. But at the same time, I don't know that it accomplishes anything. The question is, who caves? Do the conservatives, quote unquote, the 4 that are holding out here, do they cave? Do they say, well, we made our point. We made our protest. Doggone it. We held it up for a whole day, a whole 2 days, a whole, however many days it ends up being. And there you go. We're done. We made our point and we feel better now. Kind of like an informational strike, I guess. Do they cave and say, okay, now McCarthy will do it, but you need to understand that we don't like you? As if he didn't already know that. Or does McCarthy cave? Does he give in to their demands for some of the rules that they want? And having looked at some of the rules that they want, I don't disagree with it. One of the rules that they want is to be able to get rid of the house architect easier, who, as it turns out, is kind of a scumbag. He's, abusing his position. And they want to change the rules so that they can get rid of this guy so that they can, correct that situation. And McCarthy's not willing to bend on that. I don't know why. I don't know what the hair up his butt is about, keeping this guy. But as a general rule of thumb, you ask yourself, well, who's going to give in here? Will it be the conservatives, which is what I think will happen? Now, again, it may have already happened by the time this goes away. But up here in Washington, we're having a great deal of fun, quote unquote, with the idea that as of right now, Patty Murray is second in line to the presidency, behind the vice president. So Patty Murray, the president pro tem of the Senate, and our senator up here that we've talked about in the past. I think the conservatives will end up caving, but we'll have to wait and see. you got to ask yourself the second question, which is, how bad does this look in the meantime? Politics is about optics. Politics is about perception of things. And right now, McCarthy looks very, very weak. He can't control his party. He can't bring his party in line. Who's the party whip? I don't even know at this point. But they can't get the party in line. They can't get the entire Republican voting bloc in line. This should have been slam dunk. This should have been easy, and it wasn't. And it makes McCarthy look like a milquetoast Central Valley of California Republican. Oh, wait, never mind. In any case, it could be seen that way even by the left. The Democrat Party could be seeing some weakness here, but they're going to blame the Trumpers, the Boberts and the likes of that, because it fits their agenda better. So they're going to blame Trump and Trump supporters for this, saying, see, even now Trump's holding up the business of the nation because Congress can't get on with the big work of the nation. Which is why I say to you that really in all of this, the only question left is who to blame for it all. The right's going to blame the conservatives, and the left is going to blame Trump, because they always do. In the local news up here in the Pacific Northwest, I have seen multiple reports today. And I've gotten emails from a couple people saying, Dave, have you seen this? You were wrong. Which I always love. I love those emails. Dave, you were wrong. Was I? The Praying Bremerton football coach is returning. That's right. He's coming back. And this time, I don't know. If you read past the first sentence and the headline of every one of these stories that has been sent to me, and I don't care which newspaper you're sending from, you'll notice that they all say to a T, because they're all the same story. They're all an AP story. It's just being copied over. But they all contain this sentence, which is Joseph Kennedy, the Bremerton football coach, could be back as soon as this spring. As we've talked about before, he's not back yet. Why would he be, is my question. I mean, why would you? He's making the Christian Conservative Victory Tour, making lots of money, I would guess, in speaking fees, way more than the $5,000 he gets to be an assistant football coach. See, this is the thing. He's not the head coach. And he will not be the head coach. He will be an assistant coach, probably the JV head coach, which is, again, okay, great. It's a $5,000 a year job. It's not, speaking to audiences full of people who are cheering him on because he stood up for religious freedom, which, again, is a huge deal to me, but I'm not convinced that that's what he was doing. He could come back, but he hasn't yet. In fact, if you read local reports from up here, rather than from around the country, you'll find that there are serious questions about he hasn't contacted anybody. Nobody's been in contact with him. He doesn't have a contract. Nothing. So, yeah, he could come back, but that's not the same thing as he is coming back. For the record, for what it's worth, I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would come back. What's the what's the advantage of it? Sorry, my wife's texting me. And I have to respond. You know how that goes. I don't know why you would in that situation. You don't need to. It's not worth it from a financial standpoint. It's $5,000 a year. Okay. I mean, I guess if you're not doing anything else, then maybe, but what's the point of it? Is none of the players that were there when he was there are there anymore. There's no real connection to things. And at the end of the day, did he really prove anything? It's the questions that are still there. Now, he could come back just to spike the ball. I mean, he could come back, and believe me, if he does, there will be a media circus after the first game that he's on the sidelines for, because you know there will be a prayer at the center of the 50-yard line, because that's what Jesus said, right? He said, when you pray, go to the center of the 50-yard line, gather as many people around you as you can, and make sure you have plenty of media coverage. I'm sure that's in Matthew or John. He could come back, and he could come back just to spike the ball and do that. But really, why? I mean, if it's really about all that, there's ways to handle it. I don't think it is. I think it was always about money. I think it was always about somebody else getting rich. And I think it was about establishment. But at the same time, now we're told that he might be coming back, could be coming back, but he isn't yet. So for those of you sending me the emails going, Dave, you were wrong. See, he's back. He's not back yet. He's not back yet. And until he has a signed contract, which would, trust me, will be on the front page of the Kitsap Sun when it does happen, he's not back. So really, let's just not go there with that, okay? Let's see what happens in the future. For those of you who might be wondering, Tammy started a new job a couple of weeks ago, and we're still trying to get our feet underneath us, how this is all going to work. She became a traveling nurse, so she's gone for as much as 13 weeks at a time. Not this time. The contract that she took is relatively close, so she's only gone 3 to 4 days at a time right now. But so texts are going to become a thing while I'm talking, because it's right around the time she gets off work in the morning, and until we get our feet under us on this, it's actually, I think it's going to be a really good thing for her. It's actually, except for her not being here, it's actually going to be a good thing for us. And so looking forward to her. She's off and running with it, and she's enjoying herself. And that's what I really needed. I really needed her to enjoy herself at work again, because she wasn't. And that was, it was scary. Going forward, I wanted to take just a moment to talk about my plans going forward over the next few months. There is a cloud hanging over all of this. So everything I'm about to say might sound great and might look great on paper, but keep in mind that there is a huge cloud of teeth, dental teeth, hanging over this. At some point, the dentist is going to say, we're going to do this, and they're going to start pulling teeth and building things, and I don't know what that's going to mean. I was told that it could take 9 months to a year because there has to be a healing process, then a construction process, and so at this point I can't say yay or nay. Neither can I sit here and go, well, I can't do anything because they might start doing this at any moment. I felt like we got to get going. We got to do the things that I want to get done for 2023 and beyond. To that end, I have committed myself, and I actually wrote it down on paper. I got a friend that's a leadership guru, which is a term I hate. He hates it too, but he's written several books about leadership and management. And one of the things he said to me was, Dave, this all sounds great, but you need to write it down. You need to. And so sat down with Bill Mick the other day, wrote down all the stuff for Dave Does History, sent that to him for the entire year. For this show, for Plausibly Live, I plan to do at least 2 commentary shows like this one a week. I don't know specifically what date they will fall on. It looks like Monday and Wednesday, with Tuesday being DDH and Thursday being Constitution Thursday again. But, things might happen. But that's the plan, is to commit to at least 2 commentary shows where the news is going on and I talk about what's going on in the news. There is another project that I'm working on. It's a very special and very personal project. That doesn't mean I won't share it with you when it's ready to go and when it launches, but that is going to take up some time as well in the later part of the week. Of course, WTF is continuing and other things as well. I want to make a commitment to you, and I want to remind you of something that I have always said. Literally from day one, I have said this. This podcast, this internet radio show, hate the term podcast anymore. This internet radio show will always be delivered free of charge. Though I will never consent to, agree to, or participate in having a charge for this show. If it ever gets to the point where somebody says you have to charge for this, that'll be the last day of the show. And that's just the way it is. That said, if you want to support the show, and many of you have, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough that I don't have to worry about the website. I don't have to worry about the hosting site. I don't have to worry about some other things. But if you would like to support the show, at the very bottom of the page each day is a link to our coffee link, ko-fi.com/Dave Bowman 727. And you can make a small donation. You can buy me a cup of coffee there on the coffee website. So if you want to continue to support, if you like what we're doing here and you think we can do more of it, I would appreciate that. And again, I can't promise you anything. I really can't, especially with this dental cloud. But my plan is at least 2 commentary shows a week, a Dave Does History a week, and a Constitution Thursday, as well as WTF and the other things. So I hope we'll have lots of content. I was very pleased with last year. We were this is so weird to me. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about podcasting business, but we're in the top 10% of content production in the entire world, which is remarkable to me, but it also is indicative of some of the things that podcasting, which is, again, is a term I hate, is going through across the board. And I'm sure we'll have some more to say about that at some point. If you have any questions, you can always email me, dave@thedavebowmanshow.com, and you can text me, area code 209-565-DAVE. It's 209-565-3283, and you can voicemail me there. The nice thing about that is I usually see them. I will admit over the holidays, I haven't even looked at it. So if you've texted me over the holidays or called me over the holidays, sorry, I haven't seen it yet. But normally I keep that open. And so I try to keep communications open as well. So email, text, voicemail, and of course the Facebook page as well. And with that, ego biberi capulus et oliva verve, I drink coffee so that others might live.